Captain Jake Morrison stood at the viewport, watching as the vast silhouette of Nexus Prime loomed closer with each passing second. The Galactic Council headquarters resembled a colossal metallic flower adrift in the void, chrome petals shimmering under the glow of 3 distant suns. Jake had traveled this route countless times over the last 5 years, yet today carried an unfamiliar weight. Traffic chatter was subdued, and fewer ships than usual drifted around the station's perimeter. From the comm station, his communication officer swiveled in her seat. "Captain, we have clearance for docking base 7. Council chambers request your presence immediately." Jake nodded, straightening his crisp blue diplomatic uniform. For half a century, Earth had been a member of the Galactic Council, and he'd served as one of its chief liaisons. It was meant to be a prestigious role, humanity's voice among the stars. Most days, though, it felt more like he was an errand boy for politicians barely willing to acknowledge humanity's presence. The docking sequence unfolded smoothly, and before long, Jake was striding through Nexus Prime's familiar corridors. The station was home to representatives from 47 species, its halls alive with a cacophony of languages. Towering gray-skinned Altarians moved with deliberate grace beside squat fur-covered Caparians. Groups of Aquarians glided past, blue-scaled and gill-breathing in the recycled atmosphere. And mingling among them were humans, instantly recognizable for their plain attire and practical bearing. Jake reached the council chambers where Senator Maria Lopez awaited. Fatigue etched into her features. Her immaculate hair looked hastily arranged, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. She gripped his arm tightly. "Jake, thank goodness you made it," she said, tension threading her voice. "We need to talk before the session starts." He studied her face. "What's wrong, Maria? You look like you've seen a ghost." She tugged him into a side chamber. "Maybe I have. I've been hearing whispers, conversations that stop the moment I arrive. Yesterday, 3 Altarian delegates left the room when I walked in. That's never happened before." Jake's brow furrowed. The Altarians had long been among humanity's staunchest allies, logical, pragmatic beings who valued human diligence. Their avoidance wasn't just strange, it was alarming. "Have you spoken to Dr. Carter about it?" he asked. "That's the problem," Maria replied. "Lisa's been trying to access the central database for her research. They revoked her clearance 3 weeks ago, called it temporary maintenance. No one will explain why." Before Jake could respond, a soft chime signaled the session's start. Together they entered the grand chamber, taking seats in humanity's section. The room was a massive dome, seating arranged in concentric rings, each species occupying its assigned territory. At the center rose the dais of the 5 senior council, members, elders of the galaxy's most ancient civilizations. Prime Counselor HFY, an Altarian elder with silver-toned skin and eyes glowing like azure stars, called the meeting to order. His voice, heavy with centuries of wisdom, flowed into flawless English via the universal translator. "We convene today," HFY began, "to address matters of galactic security and the expansion efforts of member civilizations into unclaimed territories. Concerns have arisen regarding unauthorized settlements and improper resource utilization." Jake shot Maria a sharp glance. Humanity had adhered strictly to colonization protocols, yet the accusation sounded unmistakably directed at Earth. Then, Counselor Zafara spoke, a towering 4-armed Zephyrian, golden scales glinting under the chamber lights. "Instances of aggressive expansion by newer council members," Zafara continued sharply. "Such actions endanger the fragile balance maintained for millennia." Maria rose from her seat. "If I may," she said firmly, "Earth has adhered to every protocol regarding our colonies. Each settlement received full approval through proper channels. We've enforced strict environmental safeguards." "Sit down, human counselor." Aquanel snapped through her translator, gills flaring with irritation. The blue-skinned Aquarian's voice rippled like water. Your species already controls far too much territory for such a young civilization. Jake's jaw tightened. 50 years of loyalty, resources, fleets, soldiers, and humanity was still treated as unruly children begging for scraps. He started to rise, but Maria pressed a restraining hand on his arm. The session dragged on for another hour, a parade of grievances targeting humanity, mining operations labeled too efficient, cargo ships moving recklessly fast along trade corridors, even diplomatic visits accused of being overzealous. When it finally ended, Jake and Maria walked the station's corridors in heavy silence. "This is escalating," Jake muttered. "Much worse," Maria agreed. "I've been keeping records, but Earth needs to know. Something's building, and we're the target." Before he could respond, Dr. Lisa Carter appeared from a side passage. The tall redhead, normally the picture of composure, looked pale and shaken. "Jake, Maria, thank God," she said breathlessly. "I need to show you something. I finally accessed the database, and what I found—" She shook her head. "We need privacy." They hurried to Jake's ship. Inside, Lisa activated the security screen, sealing out any surveillance. From her satchel, she produced a data pad, setting it on the table. "I've been tracking communication between council members," she explained. The display bloomed with a tangled network of messages spanning dozens of species. Most lines were routine chatter, but several, highlighted in red, pulsed ominously. "For 6 months," Lisa said, "the primary council members have exchanged hundreds of encrypted transmissions. I cracked the simpler codes." She tapped the red lines. "They're talking about us, and it's bad." Jake leaned forward. "What kind of bad?" "Terms like containment, final solution, necessary action. One message spoke of eliminating the human problem before it grows uncontrollable." Maria's face drained of color. "They're planning something against Earth." Lisa nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I found repeated references to Operation Silent Dawn. It begins in 72 hours. Jake shot to his feet. "We need Admiral Hughes warned immediately." "Already done," Lisa replied. "Encrypted message sent an hour ago. But Jake, this isn't political sanctions or membership revocation. Some transmissions speak of permanent resolution and total sterilization." The three humans exchanged horrified looks. 50 years of service, 50 years of loyalty and trust, and the Council was preparing their annihilation. "How long do we have?" Jake asked quietly. "If my timeline holds," Lisa said, 70 hours. "But Jake, they're not just targeting Earth. Every colony, every outpost, every ship wiped out." Jake felt ice in his veins. Humanity had believed in unity, in cooperation, believed their sacrifices mattered. Instead, they faced extinction by those called allies. "Get us out of here," he ordered. "Maximum speed, Earth." The Meridian tore away from Nexus Prime. Jake stared once at the gleaming station. Soon, it would stand not for cooperation, but betrayal. Earth Defense Command flashed across the comm board. Admiral Ben Hughes appeared, weathered face grim. "How reliable is this intel?" Hughes asked, voice grim. "Sir," Jake said firmly, "based on months of observation, I'd stake my life on it. They're planning to wipe out every human settlement in the galaxy." Hughes nodded once, jaw tightening. "Then God help them. Because they're about to learn what humanity does when its back hits the wall." Colonel Ryan Davis was sipping his morning coffee when the alarms shattered New Haven Colony's routine. Calm. For 15 years, the settlement on Kepler 442b had thrived. 200,000 citizens building lives around mining operations and agricultural research. Ryan had commanded the Colonial Defense Force for 3 uneventful years. The most excitement they'd seen were meteor drills and the occasional sensor glitch. His comm board suddenly flared with emergency signals from orbital monitoring stations. Frowning, Ryan set his coffee aside and activated the main display, expecting stray debris or maybe a malfunctioning satellite. Instead, his veins went cold. 12 enormous warships were emerging from hyperspace above the planet. Their sleek, angular hulls bore the terrifying signature of Zahirian battlecruisers, ships that could erase entire cities in minutes. Behind them came Alarian destroyers and Aquarian assault carriers, all branded with the official crest of the Galactic Council. Ryan grabbed his communicator. "This is Colonel Davis to all defense stations. Hostile ships in orbit. This is not a drill. Repeat, not a drill." His aide, Lieutenant Barnes, sprinted into the command center, face pale. "Sir, no response to hails. Orbital command's trying, but they're ignoring everything." On the tactical display, the enemy ships shifted into attack formation. No warning, no demands, no negotiations. New Haven had no real military defenses, just basic security forces and a handful of outdated patrol craft meant for pirates, not war fleets. "Get me Earth Command," Ryan snapped. "Priority 1 channel. Now." But before Barnes could comply, the first energy beams cut through the sky. The orbital mining platform, keystone of the colony's industry for over a decade, vanished in a white-hot blast. Then the bombardment began. Energy bolts rained from orbit. The government complex erupted in fire as the main communications center vanished in a single strike. Backup power kicked in, but long-range comms were gone. Ryan switched to the emergency broadcast frequency on his personal unit. "This is Colonel Davis, New Haven Colony. Any human vessel in range, we are under attack by Galactic Council forces. Civilian targets are being bombarded. Defense systems failing. Immediate assistance required." Through the command center windows, Ryan saw the city burning. The graceful white domes housing the colony's families splintered under relentless orbital fire. Civilians fled through the streets toward underground shelters originally designed for asteroid impacts. "Never for this!" "Sir!" Barnes shouted over the roar of another explosion. "Reports from mining settlements. Store's been completely wiped out." Ryan's stomach clenched. Store had housed over 5,000 workers and their families. Outside, another energy beam struck the eastern district. Fire rolled skyward. Ryan slammed a fist against the console. No defenses, no warning, no chance. The Galactic Council hadn't come to occupy New Haven. They had come to erase it. Sector 3 reports massive casualties. Sector 5 shelters took a direct hit. Ryan felt his stomach turn. These weren't precision strikes against military assets. The attackers were erasing every trace of human life. Civilians, scientists, children, farmers, none spared. 3 systems away, Dr. Emma Stone was working late in Titan Base's laboratory when her assistant burst in, pale and breathless. The research station orbited a gas giant, serving as both fueling depot and science hub for the outer colonies. "Dr. Stone, we're receiving emergency transmissions from New Haven Colony," he said. "They claim Council forces are attacking." Emma looked up, startled. "That's impossible. It has to be some kind of error. Ma'am, you need to hear this." They sprinted to the comm center, where the duty officer struggled to boost the weak signal from distant Kepler 442b. Static filled the feed, but fragments of the message cut through. Under attack. Civilian targets destroyed. Council forces. "No warning. Someone warn Earth." Emma stared, stunned. Before she could react, Titan Base's proximity alarms wailed. Through the viewport, battlecruisers were dropping from hyperspace, Saphirian warships moving like predators toward unarmed. "Pray, send immediate warning to Earth Command," Emma ordered. "Include everything from New Haven, every transmission, every detail." "Trying, ma'am," the comm officer shouted, "but they're jamming everything." The first energy beam ripped through Titan Base's outer hull. The station lurched violently as main power collapsed, plunging corridors into emergency lighting. Emma felt ice spread through her chest. The station had no weapons, no shields, no defenses. All personnel to escape pods, she announced over the intercom. Launch immediately. This is an evacuation order. She dashed back to the comm station one last time, rerouting systems manually to force a narrow beam transmission through the jamming fields. Her final message was short but devastating. Council attacking all human colonies. Operation Silent Dawn confirmed. They mean to kill us all. The transmission lasted 12 seconds before another energy beam turned the array to molten debris. Emma ran for the escape pods as Titan Base crumbled around her. Far across the system, Captain Alex Turner piloted the cargo vessel New Horizons when his long-range sensors lit up with distress calls. At first, he thought it was a malfunction. Council fleets attacking human colonies was unthinkable. Then he saw what was left of Titan Base. Alex had run supplies. For 8 years, knew every colony, every mining outpost, every orbital station. Now he watched from a safe distance as Council ships moved systematically, erasing everything humanity had built among the stars. His comm board filled with frantic transmissions from across human space. The pattern was the same everywhere. Fleets, arriving without warning, hammering civilian targets, silencing whole worlds in minutes. "This is Captain Turner, New Horizons," he broadcast over emergency frequencies. "I am witnessing the destruction of 12 human colonies by Galactic Council forces. This is a coordinated attack to erase all human presence in space." Meanwhile, Commander Helen Price aboard the intelligence vessel Shadow floated in the asteroid belt of a nameless system, her ship cloaked and silent. Built for reconnaissance, Shadow carried the most advanced sensors in Earth's arsenal. Its mission: monitor potential threats to human territory. What Helen recorded that day became history's ultimate proof of betrayal. Her instruments logged every enemy jump, every bombardment, every shattered colony. The data was undeniable. This wasn't retaliation. This wasn't defense. It was genocide. Helen watched in shock as the attack fleets moved through human space with terrifying precision. They had clearly planned the operation for months, coordinating strikes to hit every system at once. The timing was perfect, the execution flawless. It was obvious the Council had been preparing for this betrayal while humanity continued serving, loyally, never suspecting the trap closing around them. As hours passed, the full scale of the massacre emerged. 11 of 12 human colonies reduced to ash. 3 million dead. Their only crime, being born to a species the Council found threatening. The survivors were scattered, their homes obliterated, their trust in galactic civilization shattered, beyond repair. Helen compiled her reports, knowing Earth needed every detail, every destroyed settlement, every murdered civilian, every betrayal by so-called allies would be documented. Nothing would be forgotten. The Council assumed humanity would accept its fate quietly, that the survivors would submit to whatever judgment was imposed. They had no idea what they had awakened. That evening, their official broadcast claimed humanity had become an expansionist threat, needing containment for galactic peace. They painted themselves as reluctant peacekeepers forced into difficult choices, but the survivors knew the truth. The galaxy had not destroyed a threat. It had created one, an enemy forged from loss and rage. Earth had received the warnings. Admiral Hughes was already mobilizing every resource for the coming war. The age of trust was over. The age of human supremacy had begun. President Jack Kelly stood before the emergency session of United Earth, his face grim. 6 hours earlier, the news had arrived. 3 million dead, 11 colonies gone. The Council calling it necessary. "My fellow humans," Jack began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "Today, we learned the true cost of trust. For 50 years, we served faithfully. We gave resources, technology, soldiers, whenever asked. We obeyed their laws, believed their promises. And they repaid that trust with genocide. He paused, letting the silence carry the weight of his words. They murdered our people while they slept. They destroyed our children while they played. They called it necessity. But we know what it truly was, fear. General Susan Hayes sat in the front row, uniform perfect, despite 36 sleepless hours coordinating Earth's defense. Her eyes burned with the cold determination soon to define humanity itself. The galaxy fears us, Jack continued. They fear our adaptability, our growth, our refusal to accept the chains they forge. So they struck first, and they made the gravest error possible. Beneath Geneva, in secured laboratories, Dr. Nathan Cross was already preparing humanity's answer. He, director of advanced weapons research, had dreaded this day, though he had prepared for it all his life. The projects he once hoped would remain. Theoretical were now humanity's only hope. How long until the Wraith Drive prototypes are operational? General Hayes asked, stepping into the lab. Nathan looked up, eyes bloodshot but blazing with purpose. 72 hours for the first test units. Mass production in 2 weeks if we convert civilian shipyards. The Wraith Drive was humanity's trump card, a propulsion system allowing ships to phase out of normal space. During transition, they became invisible to sensors, immune to conventional weapons. Years of development, never tested in combat. And the quantum torpedoes? Hayes pressed. Already in production, Nathan said. They don't just destroy, they make prediction impossible. Each warhead exists in multiple probable states until impact. Point defenses can't stop what they can't track. Above Earth, Admiral Claire Roberts oversaw the transformation of orbital shipyards. Cargo haulers and research vessels were no longer being built. Warships now rolled off the lines at unprecedented speed. Every resource redirected, every system pushed to its limit. "Status report, Admiral," President Kelly demanded during his inspection. 80% of manufacturing converted to military production, Claire replied. Automated shipyards running non-stop. Output exceeds projections. She pointed to the holographic display of Earth's growing armada. Each ship incorporates hard lessons from the massacres, unpredictable, heavily armed, fully autonomous. Human warships looked nothing like their alien counterparts. Where Council ships favored graceful curves, human vessels were angular, brutal, predatory, sensor-defeating hulls, weapons arrays built for absolute destruction. How many ships for the first wave? Kelly asked. 200 combat vessels within the month, Claire said. But these aren't just ships. They're vengeance forged in steel, designed so humanity will never again kneel to anyone. Meanwhile, intelligence networks once used for diplomacy had shifted overnight. Commander Helen Price coordinated agents across the galaxy, mapping Council supply chains, military outposts, political strongholds. What about their defenses? Hayes asked at a classified briefing. They're completely unprepared, Helen replied. For what we're planning, Helen said, they have no defense. Galactic warfare has been ritualized for centuries. Their fleets fight with predictable tactics, honor ancient conventions, and assume their enemies will respect those same rules. They've never faced a species that treats war as a science to be mastered. The psychological shock was spreading across human space. Survivors from the ruined colonies were arriving on Earth, farmers, teachers, children who had watched entire worlds burn. Their testimonies ignited a rage that swept through humanity like wildfire. Dr. Lisa Carter returned from Nexus Prime carrying detailed intelligence on Council capabilities and vulnerabilities. Her analysis revealed what the Council had never considered. They were arrogant. Centuries of technological dominance and complacency had made them blind. They expected awe, not scrutiny. Their ships outclass ours individually, Lisa told military leaders, but they're built for wars between civilized species. Limited point defense because no one uses suicide fighters. Shields tuned for energy weapons because kinetic rounds are primitive. General Hayes allowed herself a cold smile. Then they're about to learn humans aren't civilized, by their standards. 3 days after the massacres, the Council delivered its first ultimatum. Through formal diplomatic channels, wrapped in the language of galactic law, they demanded Earth's immediate surrender and offered what they called merciful relocation under Council supervision. President Kelly's reply was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. His voice was calm, measured, and far more terrifying than any shouted threat. To the members of the Galactic Council, he began, you have taught us valuable lessons about galactic civilization. That mercy is weakness. That trust is a vulnerability. That survival demands strength above all else. We thank you for these lessons. We will never forget them. He stared directly into the camera. You came without warning and slaughtered our people. You called it necessity. You expected submission. You have made a fundamental error about human nature. Then came the recordings. Colonies burning, civilians massacred, entire settlements erased. Every species in galactic space saw the evidence. None could deny it. You tried to destroy us before we became a threat, Kelly concluded. Now we will become the greatest threat you have ever faced. We will not surrender. We will not relocate. We will not forgive. And above all, we will not fail. The message ended with 2 words that would echo through history. Humanity remembers. Within hours, the first human warships left Earth's shipyards. Moving in small, coordinated groups, they slipped into Council space with one mission: find the enemy and annihilate them. No quarter, no mercy, no negotiations. The galaxy had awakened something it did not understand. Humanity was coming, with weapons forged by a species that had learned survival in the harshest universe imaginable. The age of galactic peace was dying. The age of human supremacy was about to begin. Captain Sam Mitchell stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance as it phased back into real space near the Zephyrian supply depot at Kepler 186. The massive station, buried in an asteroid, supplied weapons and fuel for entire Council fleets. Intelligence claimed it held enough munitions for a dozen armadas. Tactical analysis complete, his weapons officer reported. 24 defense platforms, minimal patrols. They're not expecting trouble. Sam's jaw tightened. The Zephyrians had grown lazy behind their shield of superiority. That arrogance would now cost them everything. All ships, attack pattern Alpha, Sam ordered. Show them what happens when you murder human children. The Vengeance first. Of the new Wraith-class destroyers was equipped with the revolutionary phasing technology that let it slip in and out of normal space at will. 5 more human warships erupted from the quantum void, their jagged hulls bristling with weapons the galaxy had never seen. The assault opened with quantum torpedoes, munitions existing in multiple probable states until impact. The Zephyrian defense grid tried to intercept them, but point defense systems couldn't lock onto weapons occupying several locations at once. Torpedoes phased through the shields and detonated inside the platforms, reducing advanced defense stations to expanding clouds of molten debris. Direct hits on all primary targets, the tactical officer reported. Defense grid neutralized. Sam watched grimly as his ships dismantled every emplacement guarding the asteroid base. Few Zephyrian patrol craft scrambled to respond, only to meet human fighter pilots whose savage tactics shattered every expectation. Lieutenant Amy Foster led Ghost Squadron into the fight with fury that stunned even her fellow soldiers. Her fighter weaved through enemy fire with impossible precision. AI-assisted targeting painting vessels for destruction faster than defenders could react. Zephyrian pilots, drilled in centuries of rigid, ritualized combat, were utterly unprepared. For this chaos, Ghost leader to all fighters, Amy transmitted, lining up another kill. Remember New Haven Colony? Remember the children? Show them what humans do when we're angry. Her squadron ripped through enemy lines like sharks through a panicked school of fish. Where galactic warfare had grown predictable and ceremonial, human tactics were erratic, lethal, terrifying. They flew patterns no strategist would attempt, took suicidal risks, and turned them into slaughter. The Zephyrian commander, overwhelmed, broadcast frantic distress calls describing enemies who appeared from nowhere, struck with surgical precision, then vanished before counterfire could even be organized. Colonel Brad Williams observed the chaos from the bridge of his stealth transport as it slipped toward the depot's docking bays. His special operations team had been deployed under the cover of the main assault, assigned a single objective: capturing critical intelligence and ensuring the depot would never rise again. "Remember, no prisoners," Brad told his squad as they prepped for boarding. "Intel first, then demolition charges across the entire complex. I want this place remembered as a warning to anyone who crosses humanity." The special forces swept through the depot's corridors with lethal precision. Their training, rebuilt after the colony massacres, focused on shock tactics and psychological warfare. Where other species spared surrendering foes, humans showed the same mercy given to the civilians slaughtered on their colonies. None. The Zephyrian garrison resisted, bravely, but faced soldiers who treated war as a science, not a ceremony. Humans weaponized the depot's own systems, turning life support corridors into traps, using tactics alien strategists labeled barbaric. Within 2 hours, the depot was theirs. Brad's team pulled terabytes of intelligence while demo crews wired. Charges that would scatter the asteroid across space. The wreckage would carry a message burned into every fragment. This is what happens when you murder human children. At Earth's command center, Dr. Rachel Green monitored the engagement. Her tactical AIs devoured battle data, learning and adapting faster than Council fleets could respond. "Analysis complete," she reported to General Hayes. "The Wraith drive exceeded expectations. Their sensors can't track phase transitions. Their weapons? Useless. Psychological impact? Catastrophic. Enemy transmissions describe ghosts striking from nowhere with impossible weapons." "What about countermeasures?" Hayes asked. "They're trying, but they're thinking like it's still civilized warfare," Rachel said. "Every plan assumes we'll fight by their rules. Our AIs are already 3 steps ahead." Kepler 186 was only the beginning. Human strike groups began hammering supply lines, communication arrays, and military outposts across Council space. Each attack unveiled fresh horrors from a species now perfecting war itself. Council fleets scrambled to intercept only to battle phantoms. Wraith ships appeared, struck, and vanished before defenders could lock on. Fleet doctrines polished over centuries failed instantly. The Altarians, once boasting the galaxy's most brilliant strategists, watched their ancient doctrines collapse before human chaos that seemed reckless, yet delivered absolute destruction. Admiral Ben Hughes directed the campaign from Earth, overseeing the systematic dismantling of Council infrastructure. They had expected desperation. What they faced was annihilation. "Status reports all sectors," Hughes ordered during a briefing. Sector 7, 3 Aquarian shipyards destroyed, 0 human losses. Sector 12, Alaran fleet destroyed, minimal damage to ours. Sector 3, enemy supply chains cut off entirely. Every update carried the same grim pattern. Humanity wasn't fighting for survival anymore. They were delivering judgment. Council diplomats begged for talks. Humanity answered with silence and more attacks. The first colony burned had ended. All negotiation. Across the stars, neutral species watched the human war machine with terror and awe. The once cooperative newcomers had become something else entirely, something no one understood yet. Each battle revealed new weapons, new tactics, and a level of ruthless efficiency that made the Council's proudest fleets look obsolete overnight. "Captain Morrison," he said, "we've received Dr. Carter's intelligence. Forces look primitive by comparison. The change was absolute. Humanity had entered the war as victims demanding justice, but they were emerging as something far worse, a species that had mastered war itself and discovered they excelled at it. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans embraced their darker nature. Fleet Admiral Tony. Brooke stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution as 3,000 human warships formed ranks around Nexus Prime. The station that once symbolized peace now looked small and fragile before humanity's armada. After 18 months of relentless war, the Galactic Council had finally broken. The siege of Nexus Prime lasted just 4 hours. Human fleets appeared from 12 vectors at once, Wraith drives letting them materialize inside the station's defenses before alarms even triggered. The few Council ships that tried to fight were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and slaughtered by weapons they barely understood. Captain Danny Walsh commanded the occupation forces. His Marines swept the corridors with silent precision, securing systems and processing surrendering alien officials. The same halls where Captain Morrison had once walked as a diplomat now rang with human boots, a reminder of how completely power had shifted. "Admiral, Council chamber secured," Danny reported. "They're asking for immediate negotiations." Brooke gave a thin smile. "They can wait. Let them sit in silence and think about what they've done." Outside, the human fleet held perfect formation, a wall of warships built with cold industrial focus. Each vessel a declaration: humanity rules now. Director Kate Morgan oversaw the vast reconstruction effort, shaping what would become the Terran hegemony. The old Council's endless debates were gone. The new order had one law: humanity's word was final. "Status report from occupied worlds," Kate requested during her daily briefing with President Kelly. "The Zephyrian homeworld has fully surrendered," she read. "Military disbanded. Shipyards converted to civilian use under human control. Altarian colonies supplying intel on former allies for leniency. Aquarian systems requesting to join our expansion fleets." Kelly nodded. Species that betrayed humanity learned obedience. Those who stayed neutral or secretly helped were rewarded with wealth and influence. The galaxy itself was changing. Races that once mocked humans as primitives now spoke their names with fear, trading hushed stories of impossible battles and unstoppable fleets. Everyone studied human tactics. No one could replicate them. Counselor Peter Johnson, Earth's first representative to the reformed galactic government, ran the new order from the former council chambers. Alien curves had been replaced by sharp, functional lines. Human design, human rule. "The Kepler Federation requests trade rights," his aide reported. "Rare metal access in exchange for military protection." Johnson approved with a signature. Dozens more agreements waited. Prosperity came through cooperation. Resistance brought only extinction. The transformation was clearest in the conquered. The once proud Altarians now served as administrators under human oversight. Their intellect valued, their independence gone. The Zephyrans, once warriors, now worked as auxiliaries in Terran fleets, their military traditions preserved only in museums. At last, Admiral Brooke entered the council chambers. The 5 alien leaders who once ruled the galaxy sat on plain chairs, ceremonial robes replaced with simple clothing. They looked older than time itself, broken by the total collapse of everything they believed about power, destiny, and war. Galactic civilization. "Honored counselors," Tony began, his voice carrying mock courtesy. "I trust your accommodations have been adequate." Prime Counselor Vexhai, the ancient Altarian once revered across the galaxy, spoke in a frail whisper. "Admiral Brooks, we are ready to discuss terms for peace. Surely, there is room for compromise." Tony's expression didn't change. "You misunderstand," he said evenly. "This is not a negotiation. This is me informing you of the new reality. The Galactic Council no longer exists. Your power is gone. Your species will serve humanity's interests for as long as we permit." The alien leaders exchanged broken glances. Centuries of dominance erased. Once rulers of dozens of species, now prisoners awaiting judgment from the very race they had tried to destroy. The terms are simple, Tony continued. Your worlds will be ruled by human governors. Your militaries disbanded or absorbed under human command. Your industries redirected to fuel our expansion. Your children will study human history, so they will never forget what betrayal costs. Counselor. Aquanel's gills trembled as she asked, "And if we refuse?" Tony smiled, cold and humorless. "Then you've already seen the result. Empty star systems where thriving worlds once stood. Your choice is obedience or extinction." The surrender ceremony was broadcast across the stars. Billions watched as the defeated council signed away their authority to the Terran hegemony. Their names marked the birth of a new order forged in fire and vengeance. Director Morgan oversaw reconstruction on a galactic scale. Ruined worlds were rebuilt with human technology and efficiency. Trade networks were redesigned to serve humanity first. Alien species received only what Terrans allowed. The galaxy that rose from the Council's ashes was unrecognizable. Debate and compromise were gone. Now there was hierarchy, with humanity unchallenged at the top. Equality between species had ended. Superiority backed by overwhelming force had replaced it. 50 years later, children across 1,000 worlds learned the story of the Council's betrayal and humanity's wrath. It became legend, a warning whispered to every generation: never provoke the species that turned war into science. Human exploration fleets pushed deeper into uncharted space, protected by the most powerful military ever assembled. New civilizations encountered the Terran hegemony and swiftly learned that cooperation brought survival. Resistance brought annihilation. The galaxy was unified under one banner, a unity born not of trust, but of fear and strength. History recorded the lesson with brutal clarity. Humanity had entered the stars seeking friendship. Betrayed, they had shown the galaxy what happens when a cornered species chooses dominance over extinction. The Terran hegemony stood as proof. Sometimes, victims become conquerors, and betrayal births the most merciless empire of all. In the end, the Galactic Council achieved the opposite of its intent. Trying to destroy humanity had created the most dangerous power the stars had ever seen, and the galaxy would never forget it.